In this lesson, let's take a look at creating the fan pattern on the back of our end cap here. So it's going to be a fairly complex sketch, and before we get started, again, I might just want to do some final touches on my end cap, so maybe just add some fillets to my two edges here as an example. I'll say fillets of about 10 millimeters or so. And then I want to start my fan sketch on the back of this end cap here. So again, maybe I'll just want to double tap on that surface there. And just start my sketch. So I might just start by just drawing a straight line up right from the center point of my circle here and all the way up to the top of my circle there. And notice here that the moment I've snapped my new sketch line to an existing body's edge, an additional sketch will be created along that circular edge, which I can now use in my sketch. I'm going to draw two angled lines again going to the outer edge of my circle here and say here. And then I'd like those two lines to be symmetrical. So I'll tap to select both lines here. I'll use the symmetry constraint and then select that first line as my line of symmetry. And now we can see our two symmetrical lines coming in there, coming in with those constraints as well. I might want to throw in an angle, so I'll tap to select both angled lines there. I'll throw in an angle here, let's say maybe 20-degree angle. Okay. And then I'm just going to draw a few horizontal lines, which are going to be my cutouts for my fans there. So maybe I'll draw one about here, and maybe one about here, and maybe one about here. Okay, make sure all three of those are horizontal. So I'm going to add my horizontal constraints if needed. And then maybe I want to just finish that off with some dimensions. So maybe I want a first horizontal line to the top point of my circular edge there. Let's say I want that to be maybe 20 millimeters. Okay. And same idea from my second line to my first line edge there. Again, maybe 20 millimeters. And same idea with my final horizontal line here up to my second line there again. I want that to be about 20 millimeters as well. And so I think now that throws in pretty much all the constraints and dimensions I may need there. And then what I'm going to use here is the offset tool to create the cutouts for my fan pattern here. So what I might want to do first is just use my trim tools. I'm just going to trim, let's say, this line, this line, this line, this line here. Okay. And tap the done check once I'm happy with my trims there. And why I trim that is just so it makes my offset command a little bit easier here. So now we can see if I use offset, I can actually drag any edge or any face to do my offset here. But so if I grab just this edge here and pull in a little bit, okay, notice it's offsetting that entire shape of my sketch. So that's why I trimmed away or deleted that internal line, because I didn't want to offset that one as well, just these four outer edges. So I can offset this to whatever degree I'd like. Let's say maybe an offset of 2 millimeters. And same idea here, 2 millimeters. And here as well, let's say 2 millimeters. So those three shapes are going to be the main shape for the cutouts for my fan pattern there. So what I can do now is just tap the done check mark. And essentially I can just use these three shapes, make copies to pattern all the way about my end cap here. So I can go to transform and go to move, rotate, scale. And just as we've seen a couple times already, I probably want to turn on the copy command there. And I'm not transforming groups or shapes in this case, but actually the sketch itself. So again, grab the aspects I'd like, so these three shapes, move my pivot point to wherever I'd like, in this case dead at the origin there, and then just rotate as needed. So I can rotate my pivot point here. Yeah, so I'd want it about 20 for each copy. So 20, then 40, then 60, and so on until we've copied all the way about our end cap here. Then once we have all of our fan cutouts sketched here, I can just tap the done check to finish off my transform tool. And essentially just use all of these sketch cutouts to cut out my fan pattern. So I just want to tap to select each and every one of these cutout sketches here. And then once I've selected each sketch pattern here, I'll just want to cut these away. And just drag slightly to cut all the way through. And now we have our nice fan pattern coming on our end cap, and we can see a little bit of our internals of the rest of our motor there as well. So we can see this was a fairly complex sketch in order to generate this pretty complicated geometry, but it was a fairly quick process.